Police Psychics. Find me.
Welcome back, folks. This is Kelly Snyder with Valerie Graham, and we have as our guest today Dave Campbell, psychic medium and forensic astrologer. We also have on the line Shirley, and she has a question for you, Dave. Shirley, okay. Let's hear your question.
Hi. You were discussing earlier about the birth time and, Pluto, the planet, and everything, and I was just wondering if that's similar to the geographical profiling that police do on serial killers.
Okay. Kelly, can you repeat it? I can't hear.
The profiling, is it similar to the geographical profiling that police do on serial killers? Is that what you were asking?
Okay. No, it's not anything like it. I'm not sure what they do in that regard, but no. It's nothing like it. It's totally different.
Well, I think, now that I do understand the question, Dave, I think what it is when a profiler is doing a case and they have 5 or 6 murders in the same area, they do it geographically, trying to zero in on if there is some kind of a pattern as to why the person is staying in one area. And
correct, and to see if he lives in that area.
Exactly. Yeah, right. Because if one of the things the police and the profiler tries to zero in on is the person's familiarity with the area. That is a key component, because if you're in your own backyard, you know how to escape and get away from things, then it makes it easy.
Well, that's just like in the Anthony case, Kaylee was found in the area in which the parent lived.
Exactly.
And that's the reason I was worrying about if it was similar to the geographical profiling.
Well, in this case, Dave says no, but certainly appreciate your question. That was a great question, Shirley, and thanks for calling in. Dave, thanks, Shirley. So you were 8 years old when you found out that you had this ability. Explain to me how it developed, and then really when you wanted to do something with it. I mean, obviously you're seeing ghosts and dead people, and you realize that you have this gift. If you would, go on from there.
Well, and early on, my mother also took me to because I wasn't paying attention in school, so she took me to hypnotherapy and taught me They taught me self-hypnosis and how to really reprogram my mind, and in that to do meditation and to find objects and to develop my psychic ability. So I was 8 years old doing this. And even in grade school, I was doing psychic stuff, knowing who did what or whatever. So it just became part of me. And then even when in my late 20s, I went back to school for hypnotherapy and got certified as a hypnotherapist and did lots of research with that and did a lot of clients, thousands. And then I still do. I just did one last week on, those typical weight loss things. And so it's just part of my mind. I've always developed my psychic skills. I took classes from psychics on how to further develop and how to control and how to enhance them. That was in Salt Lake City. And, of course, then I went into astrology and realized there was something there and studied it for years and took millions of hours of classes, I tell you, and still research and study that. So it's an ongoing thing. I don't think we ever stop learning. I don't think I know all the answers. I'm still searching. One
of the questions I wanted to ask you about, Dave, is when you say never stop learning, just recently you and I were discussing a case out of California, the Lombardi murder, and we're trying a different technique, and I want you to touch a little bit about that, because I don't believe we talked about it in any of our previous shows, but we're actually taking people from the family and people in the neighborhood of where this individual was murdered, and we're hypnotizing them. Our purpose, of course, and we actually were told this technique from a police officer out of San Bernardino, California, about 3 years ago. We started practicing it a little bit here locally, but we didn't actually want to do it on victim family members, and we were just doing it with our own people. But explain a little bit about that and how, you got the forensic astrology, you got the mediumship, you got all of these psychic abilities. Where do you think the hypnosis lies in the scheme of things as far as trying to help solve crime?
I think it's very valid. It's actually used in a lot of precincts in a lot of different states where it's called forensic hypnotherapy or hypnosis. And you can get certified in it. I can't remember if Arizona is one of them or not, but so that was another route I thought I'd go into someday. But I think it's very key. I think you could use it in a lot of different ways. I think it's just very... As in any case, like whether I'm looking for aliens, if you were really abducted, you never ask leading questions. You never put things in their mind.
You aren't suggestive then.
Yeah, you don't ever suggest. You have to be skilled at pulling things out of them. And also because I can tune into them, half the time I see what they're seeing in their mind anyway. Like when I say I do a past life regression, I can go right in and see it as they're seeing it and kind of tap into it and ask them the questions that I know that aren't leading but kind of validate what I'm seeing.
You are your own checks and balance system.
Yeah, so it is kind of fun to do. As far
well, we have someone that we're going to be hypnotizing here in about 2 weeks. It's the one I mentioned to you about 3 weeks ago, and it's also involved in the Lombardi murder. And I think, from a perspective of our, show, talking about it today, I did want to bring you back so we can go over the details, not necessarily of the murder, but at least go over the details of the process. And I think that would be an interesting show as well, along with the fact that while you're doing, in your particular case, unlike some of the other hypnotists, you're using all of your abilities along with the fact that you're hypnotizing the person. Is that correct or not?
That's true. Because I do, once I get them into that state of hypnosis and start the process, I start to see psychically what they're seeing.
Well, the cool thing that this hypnotist told me from California that did some of the family members and then some of the neighbors of the deceased was explaining to me that he takes them and puts them into the position where they're actually communicating with the deceased. And is that your process, or are there numerous other processes?
You could do that too. I've done that in even just a regular, like a weight loss case. It ended up that she needed closure with her father, and her father appeared right in front of me. I mean, I saw him stand right next to her, and she didn't know it. Her eyes were closed, and I'm like, oh my God. And when she came out of it, she said, oh yeah, I felt like he was here. I'm like, yeah. Because
he was.
Because he was. I saw him.
Well, that's the cool part about this thing that we're doing in California, Dave, because quite frankly, up until 2 months ago, we had never used this technique. I had a police officer, the one I was telling you about, for 3 years begging me to try this process. So
why wouldn't you?
Well, because we wanted to be extremely cautious when we were talking to family members, especially in a technique we had never used before. And what happened was this case materialized in California, and we had one of the certified members, a doctor that was doing these hypnosis techniques for 20-some years, and it just happened to be he was literally an hour away from all of our potential witnesses, so we just decided to start sending these people. Of course, the family wanted to do it because they wanted to get to the truth. And the irony is he was having these people that were hypnotized see it in the eyes of the victim, and also by communicating with the victim. And so the victim was telling him what the license plate was, the color of the vehicle, and of course, we're giving this information to the police for them to follow up. But that is essentially what I want to do in a couple of weeks.
Oh, I look forward to hearing about
Dave
that.
Campbell. Yeah, like I say, Dave and I have talked about it, so
that'll be exciting.
I can't wait.
Dave, a quick note. Several of the people in the chat room said, "Wow," and I quote, "You had an open-minded mother, and so many children can have a hard time dealing with abilities like you did." And another person said they admired your mother. Your mother really opened up with this.
She did, and it was, that was back in the early 60s, so yeah.
That was an opening time.
Yeah, and to boot, we grew up in Utah, so it was kind of not something you could talk about very openly, but we did, and she was very open to it. She did a lot of hypnosis herself, and so was very open to a lot of other, I guess it would be New Age type ideas. And
what if someone has a child whom they think might be psychic, or a teenager, whom they think might be psychic? What would you suggest they do?
I really suggest encouraging it, but not pushing it. I don't think you should try to make them, answer questions, and because it becomes.
Don't test them, in other words.
Right. Don't test them, and don't push them or make them unrealistically be something, because they'll shut off.
Sure.
But don't close them down and say that's just your imagination, or that's just hogwash, or it's evil or scary, because you don't need to scare them. There's no need for it. So.
Well, for the most part, I think you'll agree that hardly anyone out there that is not psychic or has been around psychics, or anyone, from the psychic phenomena world, is really all that knowledgeable of it. The main thing is don't deter it, and let them develop as they want to develop, and then sooner or later, when they get to a certain age, they'll probably pursue it anyway. One last question before we go. We're about to close the show, Dave, but what do asteroids have anything to do with astrology? Is there some kind of a connection there?
Oh, absolutely. They're just not talked about that much, and there's a handful of astrologers that use them. I use them extensively. And,
okay.
And for instance, like, there is another fun story. Like, a lot of the kidnapped victims have asteroid Proserpina in their charts, which she was, in mythology, the first kidnapped victim by Pluto, or Hades.
Yes.
And, like, for instance, I forgot her name. The girl that got kidnapped in the 70s.
Patty Hearst?
Patty Hearst, yeah, sorry, thank you. She has the asteroid conjunct her sun, which is your identity of who you are, and that's how you know her. So in her chart, she was born with Persephone, or Proserpina, which is the same thing.
The mythological character.
Yeah, on her sun, which is her identity, which represents who you are. And
wasn't Persephone also in charge of the seasons?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So the mythology just played out in her life. Yeah, and that's how asteroids work. That
certainly helps. Well, listen, Dave, it's been absolutely great having you on the show today. I enjoyed it, and even though you've been in the group for 10,000 years, I never really knew that much about astrology, especially forensic astrology, and I learned more today than in the last 8 years we've spent together.
And I imagine so has our audience. Learned quite a bit. Yes.
98% of the world doesn't even know what forensic astrology is, so right. I really appreciate you being on the show today.
All right, thank you very much. I enjoyed it too.
It was wonderful. Thank you, Dave.
Now get back to work on your assignments.
That's right.
And everybody remember to kiss your dogs on the lips. And that'll be the end of our show. And come back and see us and hear us next week.
See you then.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Val.
Bye-bye.